Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about immigration, and we shall be also looking at the winners and the losers in the game of immigration. So, currently, we have countries like the UK, we have Italy, we have France. We have also in the West, other Western countries like America, which are discussing ways in which they can uh, draw back on immigration and possibly reduce the level of immigration into their countries. In fact, the conversation is so much so that some countries are threatening to pull away from, for example, some EU countries are threatening to pull away from the EU because of the immigration policies. We have a lot of pressure from within countries requesting that the issue of immigration is handled once and for all. We have immigrants coming in from the Middle East, from countries like Syria and Yemen. We have also immigrants from North Africa, from Sudan, Libya. We have immigrants from sub-Saharan Africa, that would be Eritrea, Somalia, Congo. We have immigrants from all over the place. We also have immigrants from Pakistan. We have immigrants from different areas. Some immigrants, majority of the immigrants that people complain about are the economic immigrants. Nevertheless, they're still immigrants. I don't want to separate these two because all of them are moving or running away from something that's undesirable from where they've come from in the hopes of having a better life. I understand now that the driving forces of immigration are the wars in these countries, and also some of them is the poverty. The economic migrants is a poverty that is within the countries that are disadvantaged. So you find there's no hospitals, there is no jobs, and so people are forced to look further afield to find something to eat. Now, this is not unfamiliar. This has happened for years and years, where we have even Western countries that have looked further afield to get resources, and they still do that because they still go into the African continent to get food. We supply oil and all sorts of things that we supply to the Western countries. So this is not something that is unique to immigrants from low developed countries. It is worldwide that there is a search for resources. And that's how, in order to humanize people who are in this position, you have to look at it for what it is, that they are looking further afield for a better life, better resources, and to be able to support their people back home. Now, we understand that immigration is not unique to the West. There is immigration in other low developed countries as well. Even within Africa itself, there is countries that are hosting refugees and economic migrants all over the continent. So the situation with migrants is not unique to the West. The challenges that are seen in the West are the same challenges that are being raised on the African continent and other countries that I may not be conversant with at this time. But they are, on the whole, there's always going to be this similar problems that are highlighted. For example, the standard of living or the cost of living is very high, and people find that the housing becomes expensive or is not enough for their own communities. They find that the jobs, immigrants are probably willing to work for a lot less, and therefore the pay scale within jobs starts to lower, and therefore all of these things can cause a lot of contention between immigrants and the locals. However, I want to concentrate on the impact of war on that has brought about the refugee status or immigrants of refugee status, that because of the persistent wars in these countries, many of the people have then had to run away from that war, and therefore the West and other countries have a responsibility, a social responsibility, to protect innocent people who are not involved in the wars. The countries that are plagued by wars, these countries do not make weapons. They do not have machinery. They do not have the capacity and the ability to make weapons to continue to fight with one another. So what is happening is the countries that are wanting to reduce immigration are more likely the countries that are also supplying weaponry to countries that are in persistent war. And it becomes very complex. It's almost like if I am if my business is making coffins, for example, um, um, and it therefore depends on people dying for me to thrive. Now, I may be in a position to say, I absolutely do not want to see people dying. But when people are dying, my business is thriving. And therefore, it makes it very complicated for me to then advocate for, to genuinely advocate for an end to all manner of death, because that means you have to close your business. That means that there is a relationship which people within those the Western countries are unable to recognize, that there's a relationship between, there's a supply and demand or an exchange going on. Those weapons coming from France, coming from wherever, name it, from America, they are not given free to people, to Africans or third world countries to go and fight. They are paid for and exchanged for, with a lot of finances exchanging hands. And understanding that relationship will help us to stop getting so upset about having so many immigrants in our countries, and have a better understanding that we are indirect beneficiaries of other people's suffering. It's almost like what happens in the animal kingdom or other animals. There's always the hunter and the one being hunted, and there will be a winner and a loser. This is the situation that we have. The refugees in our countries or in countries are a product, or they're the losers of a situation, of an exchange that has taken place. So it makes it very difficult for me to actually believe that countries are vested in ending wars, especially countries that are supplying and gaining economically from from the production and selling of weaponry. I cannot see how that would be in the best interest of these countries if war was to entirely stop. The other thing, why I think that the bringing in refugees and immigration is not going to be stopped anytime soon, is the benefits. There is a benefit that refugees also bring in the country. For example, they will increase on workforce. The governments can use the quotas to work out where the shortages are. There's shortages in places, believe it or not, there's shortages in places where there's elderly communities, there's no younger generations, and therefore the refugees, when they come in, they bring that labor with them. The labor is cheaper most of the times, and it means that countries can use leverage refugees. And they do say there's a lot of research that has gone on about second generation children of refugees and immigrants. They tend to go to school, they attain highly in their education, and what do they call it, and they're able to contribute to economies in a very positive way. So the research has also shown that whilst there are problems in initially their expenses in integrating immigrants, there are absolute benefits along the way. When they are integrated, they're given jobs, they're allowed to work there, they become they bring in a lot of businesses. They bring in a lot of positive contribution. Research has also said that immigrants are more likely to start up small scale businesses, and that can boost economies. So there's absolutely positives about having immigrants in countries that people have not really understood. That's why it would be difficult for governments to actually put a stop to any form of immigration. That is going to go on for as long as humanity exists. So what I wanted us to achieve today is to recognize the benefits that are given the ongoing benefits of immigration for countries that host immigrants, and recognize that the immigrants are not the problem, they're actually victims of an unfair world as it is. So I think we need to educate ourselves so that we can make informed decisions and have informed ways of understanding the situations of the world. And we also need to identify how we can help to make things a lot easier for those who are touched by the plight of people's suffering. Because at times, some of the things that are happening on the big political arena are too big for us to to engage with, or we may find we don't have we feel we don't have the voice and the capacity to challenge some of the injustices that are happening in this world. But we can absolutely contribute to making the world a better place by, first of all, knowing the truth and educating ourselves so that we don't lay blame on people who are actually victims. But we also take decisions, for example, supporting organizations and individuals that are having ethical practices in the way that they're doing their things. That's something that can be done by anyone and everyone. We can also support local businesses. We can engage in peaceful dialogues where possible, wherever possible, and also prioritizing our mental health, because things like this, conflict, unfairness, injustice, have been there since the start of humanity. We can't change everything, but we can only change what's around us and within our means. So with that, I want to thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.